Does it feel absolutely impossible in dealing with that narcissist in your life? Do you want to know how to make the impossible actually possible? Then stay tuned, because by the end of this interview with the great Steve Sims, you're going to know how to do exactly that. Hi, I'm Rebecca Zung, and I'm one of the top attorneys in the country, and I've written a couple of best-selling books. And if you want tips and tricks and secrets on how to negotiate and deal with narcissists in your life, then make sure that you subscribe and hit that notification bell. So I am super excited to share with you today Mr. Steve Sims, who is the author of the book he's the author of the book BLUEFISHING, The Art of Making the Impossible Possible. But he has dealt with billionaires and Richard Branson and Elon Musk and all the most amazing billionaires on the planet, but he's also had to deal with a few narcissists in his time, and he knows exactly how to get what you want from them. So this is an incredible conversation. Plus, he's lively. He's just cool. He's so fun to watch. So stay tuned, and let's dive into my conversation with Steve Sims. Welcome to another episode of Negotiate Your Best Life. I'm Rebecca Zung, and I am really excited today to be talking to Steve Sims. I actually read his book a couple of years ago, long before I actually even met him. I listened to it and I loved his way of speaking, and you're going to hear all about that. He's got an incredible story. He's written a book. He's the CEO of the luxury concierge service called Bluefish. In 2017, he published his book, BLUEFISHING, The Art of Making Things Happen. He grew up in East London, met his wife when he was 16. What's really cool to me, I mean, this guy has had a life. He was a bricklayer. He had a stockbroker job for 6 months, moved to Hong Kong. He was fired in 5 days. He was a doorman at a nightclub. I mean, what crazy adventures. I mean, and you've worked with some of the biggest, most powerful names in the world, including Sting, Andrea Bocelli, Elon Musk, and more. We're going to talk all about that. So welcome, Steve.
I'm not quite sure I can live up to that intro, but thank you very much.
Very funny. I loved your story. And so tell me, I read a little bit about your background, but how did you actually manage to go from being fired from jobs, and you're sort of bouncing around literally as a bouncer, and even, and to now working with the most powerful people in the world and getting people to do things, dinners in Italy by being serenaded by Andrea Bocelli. And I remember when I read your book, there was something about getting Journey to play at in somebody's backyard. How did you go from that to where you are now?
Aggravation. I find that entrepreneurs, we're usually driven by aggravation. We try something, we go, damn, why does it work like that? Can't it work better, smoother? And then we go and build it. Look at Elon Musk. He hated banking. He built PayPal. So entrepreneurs have this aggravation gene in them that makes them do things. There's other people that go after opportunities, but opportunities are like unicorns. They can what is it? Where is it? And it 9 times out of 10 doesn't exist. But pain drives us faster. Growing up in East London to what I thought was in a poor family, and I'll go back to that in a second, I didn't have money. I didn't have opportunities. Also, this was the 80s, so I didn't have Instagram to tell me how inadequate my life was. So I never had any of that, but I really was aggravated that, is this it? Is this my life? Finished school at 15, straight on the building sites, not liking it, got to find something. My mum just thought, as a big lad riding on a motorcycle, I was going to prison. That was it. She just thought I couldn't hold a job down. Because entrepreneurs, we're kind of those freaks. Not every entrepreneur comes from an entrepreneurial family. So when that happens, there's a disconnect. My dad was quite supportive. I don't think he fully understood, but he wanted me to go out and see what I could do, son. You go for it, that kind of thing. My mum was bitter that I left my family behind, saying, oh, you think you're better than us. And it was a horrible situation. One that sadly never did get sorted right. But I just went out in the world thinking, hang on a minute, do I have to be a poor British biker for the rest of my life? And so I went out trying to change my room, change the people I was talking to, change the environment I was in. I wanted to see another opportunity. And we joked about Instagram. Kids today, from, I don't know, Iowa, can see pictures on the internet of what it looks like in Jakarta. They don't have to go there, but they can know what it looks like. We didn't have that in the 80s. We would see a James Bond movie, and that was the nearest we'd get to what international world looked like. And I wanted a piece of it. And I remember at the time, it was like join the Navy and see the world. And that was one of the things I was going to do. But us entrepreneurs were not very good at following orders. So that didn't go very well. And the rest is history. I started bouncing off the walls with this constant demand. I need to get into a room full of rich people. Now, you mentioned the stockbroking. I tried to do it by being a stockbroker. Okay. That didn't go very well either. And I noticed the stockbrokers only ever get called by their clients to be yelled at that the stock's gone down. They never phone up their broker and go, hey, you're doing a great job. Thanks a lot for the extra 12%. It doesn't happen, but they hate you when the market slides. Oh, and by the way, it's your fault that the market slid. So getting fired from there, ending up on the front door of a shitty nightclub in Hong Kong, I thought I was at the lowest point of my life. I thought I had tried, I had failed, and now I'm doing what God built me to be. I'm a big, ugly guy. I'm now there to slap people when they get out of order. That was my job description. But the funny thing is, us entrepreneurs, we see things a bit differently, don't we? And while everyone's crying because it's raining, we're the ones that suddenly go and buy a pile of umbrellas and start selling umbrellas on a rainy day. We're opportunists. And standing on the door of this nightclub, I suddenly got to see how people interacted with each other. Those kids that thought they were cooler than the other ones, those that were celebrating a date, those that were celebrating a contract. Working on the door, which I thought was the lowest ebb of my life, actually became the pinnacle, one of the guiding lights. And quite simply, had that single moment not happened, I would not have then gone forward in the rooms with the affluent and working with people like Sir Elton John and Elon Musk now.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it always the case like that the worst times, the lowest times end up in some ways being a gift, and it's so hard to see it when you're in it. And, I know for me, like I was teaching people how to negotiate for years because I was a divorce lawyer and I wanted to come up with a way to get in front of people and talk and do talks, and nobody wanted to hear about divorce. So I was like, okay, I'll talk about negotiation, right? And it wasn't until I had to deal with a couple of narcissists who had targeted me that I started to realize what narcissists were. And I thought, just like you said, because I'm an entrepreneur at heart, I thought, you know what? I could actually teach people how to negotiate with narcissists and it was like the worst thing that ever happened to me. I mean, I couldn't, at the time, it was horrible to deal with these people, but now it's a gift, So,
I remember when Elon Musk was doing the rocket. And I was very lucky to be involved with Elon Musk pre-NASA. And I say pre-NASA because now that he's involved with the military and NASA, no one's allowed into SpaceX. But I was in SpaceX. So I was getting to see all these rockets. And there's a picture of me sitting in one of the fuselage. So really cool experience.
Very cool.
Yeah. But I remember that one of the things he was saying, that one of the most expensive things about sending anything up into space is actually the massive fuel cells. If we could find a way of getting those back. So he was looking at the minute element of that and focusing on that. He wasn't focused on it getting up there. He was focused, how could he do it again? So without even ever achieving it, he was actually looking at how he could do it repeatedly, which was a funny kind of prospect. And then one of the things that I remember was as those fuel cells, and you may have seen it on TV. Do you remember when he was doing the tests and the fuel cells would come down and they would land on that floating platform out in the ocean, and then they would fall over and they would explode like a Hollywood movie? Do you remember those?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I read everything about him. He's a
All right.
fascinating guy.
So when was the last time you actually saw it land?
I can't say.
No. Every other week, we would see on the video, oh, Elon, it goes wrong again for Elon. That's $1 million up in flames. And you'd get all of those kind of hard headlines, okay? As soon as he got it right, the media stopped. They stopped videoing it. They stopped showing it on the news. It's not a case of, yeah, it landed again. Thanks a lot. Well done, Elon. And moving on to, they like to see things go wrong. But with Elon, two things. One, he never ever cared about what anyone else said. He was always focused on what he was doing. He had literally a mission to achieve it. Also, what I really, really admired about him was that he found always the growth in stuff that went wrong, not in it being successful. When the shit hits the fan and you think, oh my God, I lost this contract, that's gone south, I lost it. He would then turn around and go, okay, where did I lose it? How did it go wrong? And if you can repair that, then the next time that hurdle comes up, you don't trip on it. So the greatest success, the greatest growth, 99% of the time comes from the darkest hours. It comes from the lowest ebb, because that's where the success can be found. That's where the education is.
Yes, 100%. And so I want to kind of use that thought as a segue into talking about negotiating with narcissists, because obviously that's what my community and my audience is dealing with. And since you've worked with some of the biggest egos, the biggest figures in the world, you've certainly had to deal with narcissists and difficult people. So talk a little bit about that experience.
So yeah, I was probably, up until 3 years ago, probably the most unknown connected person out there. And I would literally, I've flown into airports on commercial flights, and then they've stopped the plane on the runway, and a police escort has come up, put the ladder out, pulled me off the plane, and then taken me to wherever. I've entered countries without passports being stamped. So I've been in some weird environments with some very, very, very powerful people.
And I want to just interject, because I don't think we really got into this, but basically what you do is you call it the art of making things happen, but you get powerful, rich, influential people to do things for other people. Is that, sort of that in a nutshell?
Yeah, I'm the Make-A-Wish. Well, I've got two companies, obviously, now. Since the book came out, I do a lot more speaking and coaching on how to do it, just like you were saying earlier. But my prior job for 25 plus years was I was the Make-A-Wish Foundation for people with really big checkbooks. So I would get a guy that owned most of the apartment buildings in Ukraine would contact me to get a famous singer to sing him happy birthday, or to turn up at his barbecue, or to go down to the Titanic, or to get married in the Vatican, or, as you said, close down a museum in Florence to have a dinner for 6 at the feet of Michelangelo's David, and then have Andrea Bocelli to come in and serenade them while they're chewing their pasta. I was the guy that you contacted when you wanted an incredible cocktail story and to have done something that no one ever thought could be done. That's what I would be flown around the world to do. And I would be in rooms not only with incredible celebrities from Elon Musk, Sir Richard Branson, Sir Elton John, people like this. I would also be in rooms with people that you've never met before. You have no idea who, and I was going to say I could mention names. I wouldn't, because I like to live, but I could mention people that I've worked with that you have no idea who they are, but they are 25 times richer than Sir Elton John, and they just own things like countries. So I've been up, like northern Thailand to meet some very interesting characters, and the eastern bloc of Europe, and Amsterdam, and China, and Japan. And I've traveled the world. Krakow, I did a lot in Krakow, meeting some very, very interesting people that for about $2 million wanted to do something just incredible, and I was the man trusted to do it. So I've been in the room and have clients that, shall we say, are quite colorful characters.
Yeah, so they might have had narcissistic traits or tendencies, perhaps.
Yeah, there's a few of those. Yep.
Yes. So tell us about that. Like, what are some of the most difficult ones like?
So actually, it's usually the second time. Okay, that's the funny thing. And that's when you start to reveal. So when someone says, oh, I'd really like to do that, when most people dream of something, they dilute it. They don't give you the full extent of that dream. So it's not easy, but it's more it's easier to exceed what their expectation was. You mentioned Journey. I had a client that wanted to meet the rock band Journey. That was it. I wanted to meet them. What I actually did was I actually had him brought up on stage during a concert, and he sang 5 tunes and is now recognized as the shortest term lead singer of the rock band Journey. So I took his dream and I translated it into something that was bigger than what he had thought. Now, he's not a narcissist by any means, so I don't want to use him as a lead into that. But when you give someone something that they didn't think possible, then they tend to go stupid on the second request. Because then it's the case, well, you did this, now I want that. And that's where it gets a little bit ridiculous. Once they've had, kind of like Pandora's box opened up to them and they realize that anything can be achieved, and I am a great believer that anything can be done, then they want it, and then they start demanding because they think the checkbook's going to do it. If you want to get a celebrity or someone powerful to turn away from you, go up to them and go, hey, how much would it cost me for you to do this? And watch them scarper. People don't want to be solicited. People don't want to be prostituted. They don't want any of that. So you have to handle the conversations different. With narcissists, as you know, the word no needs to be removed from the conversation. Because the second you say no, brick wall, okay? And then you've lost. You've basically created the problem for you by allowing them to say no. So what you've got to do is you've got to, and I want to choose my words carefully, but I'm not very good at it, so I'd be terrible as a lawyer. You've got to manipulate the conversation and perspective from them to get them to come up with the idea that you've laid the seeds for, so you can go, hey, what a fantastic idea, and give them credit for the idea that you've seeded them to come up with. And you've got to manipulate the conversation. You drop in things like, so I was wondering, what about if we did that? I'm not sure if that could be done. I'm not sure. And then it's goes, yeah, I want that done. And you go, well, would that be grand? Oh, that should. And then you go, that's fantastic. You're going down a line I like. I'd have never come up with that myself, but you've seeded it down the way. So with my narcissists and egos, and you're right, they play very much hand in hand. You've really got to change the tempo of the conversation to allow them to commit to a decision that you've allowed them to make.
Yeah, that is so powerful. I mean, is there a way that you could give us an example of that without giving anyone away?
So dealing with ego that's surrounded by a bank balance is different to surrounding yourself with, say, and again, I'm really trying to step carefully so I don't lay it out, a singer, okay, that's got money, but also now got a prima donna aspect to them, okay? So when you're dealing with that different egos, okay, egos are not always the same. This one demands it because it's powerful and it could have you shot. This one thinks it's God's gift to your earlobes and therefore you should adore it. They're different egos. So when trying to massage them both into the same conversation, even location. And I've got a narcissistic story for you in a second, which will bring that to light. But you've really got to massage what's in it for each person. The person with the money, they're probably trying to create a cocktail story to show off to all their other friends about how powerful they are. For this person over here, you've got to basically create a scenario of how you would be blessing and gracing this person with your presence. You know, you're coming at it with different conversations. So those are always very, very tricky. And I'll be honest with you, you get, well, I was going to say, be honest, you know this more than anyone. You can become exhausted from that chess game of a conversation. And I know I've come off of those conversations or come out of these rooms and I've just like driven down the road, pulled the bike over and gone into a bar and just sat there and sobbed into an old fashioned for an hour, just going, that hour was like a chess game with nuclear warheads, you know, bouncing off each other, trying to not get them to ignite. But I had one guy.
But did you get the deal done?
You do. And I have, but I'm going to tell you the story of one that I didn't do. Okay. That will explain it, the narcissistic content real well. So the Monaco Grand Prix is a week after the Cannes Film Festival. So the south of France during that period, early June, is rife with basically every major celebrity you can think of and the most affluent sporting event in the planet, the Formula One Monte Carlo Grand Prix. And so it's always the hotbed, basically per year, per square foot, it has more billionaires and millionaires than anywhere else in that world during that week of June. Okay, it's just a fact. And every year I would go down there and I'd work with jewelry companies, I'd worked with car firms, and one of my big contracts was I was working with Ferrari during a period of time around that. So I got to see all of these people, and you see the, you know, Sylvester Stallone and the Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then you'll see two guys from Ukraine that you've never met in your life that are 4 times more affluent, you know, so it's that kind of thing. Or the Sultan of Brunei, or, you know, some of the major families from Saudi. You'll see all of these people in your party, all at the same place, all chatting with each other. So I get this call from a client. It was about maybe a month, 6 weeks prior to the Cannes Film Festival. And I get this call from a client, and the client was from St. Petersburg, Russia. And, you know, the assistant booked up a time for me to have a conversation. And I said, hey, you know, how you doing? You know, and he said, I'm going down the week before Grand Prix, and I want, and my fiance is coming with me, and we're having a party in this big penthouse. And again, I'm trying to be a little bit vague so I don't give it away just in case anyone hears of this. So it was this very beautiful penthouse that they had taken over. And they said, I want Andrea Banderas to come in. Now, it was at the time when he was doing all of the Puss in Boots movies. Do you remember those? Mm-hmm. And what were they? The Shrek movies. And he was the voice of Puss in Boots.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So Antonio Banderas. And so he said, I want him to come to my party. So I said, oh, that's great. I said, so, you know, when do you want him to be there? What to look like? I don't know, but I won't do the accent. He said, I don't know, but, you know, just, you know, have him over there at 7. We'll talk about the details, but just see if he can come to my party for my fiance. So I went, oh, okay, let me have a chat. So I reach out to the agent that puts me through, and I get through to Antonio Banderas' manager at the time. And I said, look, I've got a very powerful client from Russia, and I don't know, are you going down to Cannes for the Shrek series? Yes, I am. So I'm going to be in that area. A lot of the celebrities, when they're in areas, they do appearances. Like when there's a concert going on, you'll suddenly see these people opening up nightclubs and things like that. So they always try to find out what peripheral stuff they can get while they're in town. And, you know, Shrek was a big movie, but it wasn't the biggest movies at the time. So for them to be able to get a few extra bucks by turning up at a party was good for them. They had it on their radar. So I said, oh, you know, we want you to turn up. It'll be in Monaco, which is pretty close. I said, you know, we want you to come to the party. Yeah, sounds fine. And he said, you know, take it, there'll be money involved. Yes, my client is very very knowledgeable on the fact that there will be a fee due and stuff like that. And he's certainly able to make that happen. It's for his fiance. All right, sounds good. Get me some more details. So I said, so you're okay in principle to be able to come over and do this? Yeah, that's good. So I said, fine. So I went back to the client and spoke to the client. And I said, okay, we've got it in principle. They've just got to find out if there's any other conflicting events going on. That was never brought up in the conversation, but you lay that down there. So if the conversation you have with the client doesn't work, you use that as a fallback. So always try to create an escape route in a conversation. So I said, oh, they've just got to see about the conflicts, but let's run over what it is that you want. So he's like, that's great. And he runs through what he wants. Fantastic. Excellent. Then we should have no problem with that at all. Let me go back and let me get it cemented as long as I said before, there's no conflict. So I go back to the manager and he's like, so what do we got? What's the price tag on this? Now, the managers and agents, they want the money. The celebrities want to know that they're doing something for good. They're doing impact. They're getting prestige. So again, you're having two different conversations, but agents and managers, they want to know the price ticket. Okay. So I get him on the phone and he's like, yeah, so what's the money? I said, it doesn't matter. You're not going to want to do this. He says, really? I said, so this is what it is. He wants Antonio Banderas to turn up at 7:30 for his party. He's going to put a velvet rope area where you and a couple of your people can sit, and he'll give you all the drink you want, but you must not leave that little velvet rope area. You must not interact. You must not take selfies. You must not take any photographs, comments. You must not leave that area for the 3 hours, and then the rope will be opened up and you can leave and go back to Monaco or back to your hotel. And he said, he doesn't want us to mingle with the gay. No. He said, why is that? And this is where it got funny. He said, my fiance thinks Antonio is one of the most gorgeous men in the planet. I need to show her that I can afford Antonio Banderas. He can't afford me.
Oh my God.
So that he wanted him just to go there and sit there in the corner and then go, there's your puppy, know your place kind of thing. And I was like, I'm not thinking this is a good one. So that didn't happen. So you do get some colorful people you've got to communicate with.
Oh my God. Did Antonio even know if it was an option?
I don't know if it got through to, because I said to the manager, within seconds of picking up the phone, the first statement of the manager is how much? And he asked that within the first second. And I said, doesn't matter. You're not going to want to do this.
I wonder if that guy is still married to that woman. Like, that sounds like such a narcissist.
There's a lot of relationships, but also I think, and you're very aware of this, there are relationships that become narcissistic. There are relationships that suddenly expose themselves. But when you're that powerful and you're that higher profile in those arenas, a lot of those ladies know what they're getting in for. And most of those guys, and I've met some narcissistic ladies as well, most of those guys, there's damage, there's collateral damage along the way. And so there's a lot of ex-wives that are now put up in penthouses that get paid a certain amount of money to never converse about the relationships. So a lot of these women know what they're getting into, not for a long-standing relationship, to turn that guy into a lovely man, but to get that penthouse and just look after that child down the line.
It's the price. It's the price they're willing to pay.
That is exactly that. So in that situation, the ladies that are stood there, they know what they're getting into.
So it sounds to me like what you're saying, and I think this is really good advice, is you sort of have to read what it is that's motivating that particular narcissist, because in some instances you're saying what's motivating them is, looking like they're doing something good for the community if there's some sort of a celebrity, or in some instances it's, assuaging their ego in some other way, right?
Well, I know this will be a big surprise to you, but people lie. So, and the daft thing is, we often lie to ourselves. Look at January the 1st when we've all done our New Year's resolutions and we're in
Which
January.
were maybe already all by the wayside.
Exactly. So we even lie to ourselves, but we do it with such determination and focus that when someone says, hey, I want to do this, usually there's a lot more behind it, but they've just given you the front line. They don't want to reveal it all to you. So in my job, and I do this with my coaching, you've got to ask why 3 times. I've got a story that lines this up nicely, if I may.
Sure.
All right. So I was working with Sir Elton John for about 8 years for his Oscar party. And I had a guy phone up my office that I had in Palm Beach at the time. And one of the team got hold of this phone call and put it through to me. And she said, look, can you take this call? And I said, why? What's going on? He wants to meet Sir Elton John. And I'm like, well, take the details, find out what it's about, And she said, no, something's not right. Can you take the call? Fine, took the call. Hey, how you doing? This is Steve Sims. How can I help you? This very abrupt New Yorker gets on the phone. And he says, hey, how you doing? Yeah, I want to get a selfie with Sir Elton John and want to get a picture with him. He said, the party's coming up soon. How much? So I said, sure, let me just get a piece of paper down and I'll take some details. I didn't have anything near me. I just wanted to keep the conversation going. I said, look, why do you want to get a selfie with Sir Elton John? And he's like, well, he's one of the greats, one of the icons. He's going to be dead soon. And I want to make sure I've got a picture on my desk. All right, great. Okay. Perfect. Let me get back to you and see what I can do. I didn't take a phone number. I didn't take a name. I didn't take nothing, but I killed that conversation real quick. There was no substance in that request. There was no substance that would have made Sir Elton John feel comfortable. There was no driving substance, no core value in the request other than superficial. Here you go. It's like people that have got presidents and royalty on their desk. It's just show off. Okay. And so there was nothing to it. So I left it alone. It was about a month gone by, and we're now about 3 weeks away from the party. And we get a phone call into the office again. Guess what? There's a guy that wants to meet Sir Elton John and get a picture. And this girl, one of my team, and funny enough, I only had ladies that worked for me in Palm Beach. One of the team contacts me, and she says, did you ever contact that guy from New York? I said, no, I didn't even have his details. There was no way I was contacting him back. And she said, well, we've got him or his mate on the phone asking for the exact same thing. Can I put it through to you to get rid of him? I said, absolutely. So she puts it through. I went, hey, how you doing? This is Steve Sims. And the guy came on, same abrupt New York tone, different name. Within nanoseconds, I'm thinking to myself, it's his mate. Because I haven't responded, his mate's trying to come at me. I went, hey, how you doing? What do you need? How can I help you? Yes, I know Elton John's party's next month, and I want to come along, and I want to meet up with Sir Elton John. I want to get a photograph with Sir Elton John, and yes, that's what I'd like to do. Yes. And that was it. Now, same request, didn't say anything about Sir Elton dying, which,
Which is yeah.
That was a weird thing to come out with
Yeah.
the first time. But pretty much the same thing. But as the end of it came out, he teetered off as though he wanted to get into a conversation but didn't feel comfortable about it. So I said to him, is there a reason for this? And he went, hey, there's things. And it was that last word, there's things. Now, you're trained to pick up on people's words. You as a legal representative, you're trained to pick up on those things. Tonality, words, positioning, body language, you do all of that. Most people in the real world, we don't have that advantage. We learn from it most of the time by mistakes. But I remember a friend of mine, Chris Voss, talking about the midnight DJ voice. Match someone's tone and then knock it down to your midnight DJ voice and see if they follow. So, of course, I said to him, oh, that's fantastic. That's brilliant. Elton John, yeah, great. But what things? And I dropped it down. And he went quiet. And then he turned around and told me this story. He said, when I was a kid, my dad used to take me to school. He used to take me to school in the morning, pick me up from school at night, every single day, all the way into high school. Never my mum. This was my dad's thing. My mum would wave us off and be waiting at the door when we got back. But every day, there and back, my dad. He said, now we had this old car and we had this cassette. The cassette could play, but we couldn't eject it out of the cassette player in the car. And it was Elton John's greatest hits. And my dad would sing it all the way to school and all the way back. And so would I. As kids, I would sing with him. And then he got another car that had a CD player. And he went out and he bought Elton John's greatest hits. And on the way to school, we would sing our lungs out to Sir Elton John. And on the way back, we would sing. And then I got into high school. And oh my God, this was so embarrassing. But he would still sing Elton on the way to high school. And he said, I would get out of that car and slam the door so fast so no one could hear Elton John coming out of the car and probably my dad just finishing off the verse. And I would get in the car and he would hit the Elton John and I would stare out of the window, just embarrassing, because my dad's singing Elton John all the way home. And I would plead with mum, please get him to stop singing. And he never did. He said, and then I got the chance to drive myself to school and that all stopped. He said, now my dad died about 20 years ago. And I'll be driving to a meeting. I'll be driving the kids to school. I'll be going out on date night with my wife. And the radio will be playing. And every now and then, Elton John comes on the radio. And for those 3 minutes, my dad is alive, singing his guts out in the chair next to me. I just want to say thank you to Sir Elton John for bringing my dad back to me for 3 minutes. Just random times, you know what I mean? On the phone, I was crying. And I said to him, let me see what I can do. I told the Elton John's camp about it. When he finally met Sir Elton John, they leant in. He told him this story, and you could just see the eyes. I couldn't hear the story because we were in the middle of a party, but I knew the parts he was getting to. And even today, and we're talking about maybe 6 years old, that story is. And I cannot tell you that story without welling up a little bit. And that was because it had a core. It had a why. You had to use your inner Sherlock and get to it. You had to keep asking why to get to the core. When you get to the core, that's your driving factor. And that was it for him.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love that. And I mean, I love Elton John too, just for the record. Your song is probably one of my top 5 of all favorite songs in the world. So for me, that's a beautiful, and I had the Elton John's Greatest Hits album when I was a kid. You know, I used to play it in my room with my little record player. You know, I grew up in the 70s and 80s too. So yeah, what a beautiful story. And I love ending on that. So I want to ask you, what motivates you every day? What's your why?
I like people to do things differently. You know, again, that's why we were talking about the coaching and the speaking. I like to take people and I like to go, look, if a bricklayer from London can be doing this with the most powerful people in the planet, you're already out of excuses. And so I like to get people challenged. I like to get people uncomfortable. And then I like to spit them out the room to create more impact. That's my why. I really like to see people going, hey, I was settling here and now this is where I live. And that's really what prides me.
Yeah. And so for people who are getting ready to negotiate with narcissists, or they're in the process of negotiating with somebody who's highly difficult, you know, that's your challenge, you know, like just go to the next level and just, hey, if a bricklayer guy who dropped out of school can now be, you know, rubbing elbows with all the top people in the world, anybody can do anything, right? So
yep, absolutely.
That's where we're going to leave it. And thank you so much, Steve. This was so fascinating. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. But really, really fascinating.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Wasn't he amazing? He's such an interesting guy. I feel like he's somebody you could just hang out with all day and have a conversation with. Plus, he knows so much about how to get people to do what you want. So if you like this video, make sure you like it and you share it. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you learned from him. Let me know what you're going to start using today. And make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you're getting ready to negotiate, make sure you grab my free Crush My Negotiation Prep worksheet at winmynegotiation.com. And also, come join my free private Facebook group called Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. Thanks so much for joining me today on this episode of Negotiate Your Best Life. I will see you in the next video.